Hi, my name is Jenny. Today I'm going to be covering some important topics from one of my favorite books of all time, Requiem for a Dream, written by Hubert Selby. The book was published in 1978 and was made into a cinematographic masterpiece in the year 2000. Um, I find that the story poses to readers a very daunting question of, is it possible that I, like Harry and Marion and Tyrone and Sarah, the four main characters in the story, whose dabbling behaviors quickly became a necessity in their lives, could I also be a victim entrenched in the harrowing bowels of addiction, causing such damage to my life to the point that I too become unrecognizable? Those of us who have lived through active addiction understand how much Mr. Selby is not exaggerating for dramatic effect. The book truly is tragically authentic depiction into the casualties of addiction and the lengths that addicted individuals will go to try to escape the most painful parts of their reality. A key theme in Requiem for a Dream is the gradual progression of addiction. From the beginning, Selby shows how each character's drug use starts as a way to cope with stress, with boredom, with grief, and with insecurity. Um, but however, this coping mechanism eventually evolves into a full-blown physical and psychological dependence. The story reaches a heartbreaking and tragic climax with each character's hopes for escape or success shattered, leaving them to face the overwhelming devastation caused by their addictions. This novel illustrates that addiction rarely shows itself alone. It is a gradual process that slowly takes control of multiple aspects in an addicted individual's life, eroding not just their health and their well being, but also their relationships, their dreams, their stability, and their future prospects, speaking to the biopsychosocial and spiritual nature of addiction. The character's pursuit of instant gratification, fueled by an allure for escape and fulfillment, blinds them to the long term consequences of their choices. In the end, their addictions plunge them farther into despair, highlighting how addiction is a vicious cycle that becomes more and more consuming over time. One of the main characters, Harry Goldfarb, his girlfriend Marion, and their close friend Tyrone, like many young adults, have a dream of success, wealth, and power. Um, they feel perpetually beaten down by the societal and environmental circumstances of poverty, of their limited opportunities, and of their lack of meaningful social support. They feel that their lives are too shaped by their low socioeconomic status and the bleak realities of their circumstances, which leads them to seek solace and escape through heroin use, which serves them for the summer, but as the colder months approach, a hard and bitter reality begins to set in, uprooting each of their lives in a significant way. Sarah Goldfarb, which is Harry's mother, hasn't she's not been quite right since the death of her husband Harold. Um, she has she has an unhealthy fixation with validation and recognition, but more specifically, becoming a television star, and she begins to lose sight of anything that is not conducive to her being able to fit into her late husband's favorite red dress. Again, she dreams of walking across the stage in her dress, envisioning her husband is still alive and supporting her. And in pursuit of this dream, she begins taking an excess of amphetamine pills prescribed by a very careless and lackadaisical doctor. And sure enough, she loses the weight. Her dress becomes tantalizingly close to zipping all the way up, but at a irreversible cost. As the story progresses, the characters' dreams, aspirations, and personalities are progressively destroyed by their drug dependencies, turning their potentially promising lives into a tragedy. Harry and Marion, who entered the drug scene in hopes of strictly selling them to bring in some extra needed cash, they soon begin to fight over the heroin, or more so, the lack of the drug when they're desperately craving it. Um, After weeks of using, Marion wakes up in the middle of the night, sweating and shaking, and she's pleading with Harry to dip into their stash, which is becoming limited and scarce. Um, Harry refuses because of the limited quantity of how much they have left, and a fight ensues between these two. With any addictive substance, prolonged use will lead to physical dependence in the body and the mind, involving a complex neural adaptations to compensate for the overstimulation or the understimulation of neural pathways. It is evident that these characters are experiencing severe withdrawal symptoms when they don't use heroin, exhibited through aggression and sweating and insomnia, um, and just generalized extreme discomfort. Um, this drives all the friends' relationships apart, putting the characters in positions that they don't align with. Regardless of this fact, though, they are in too deep at this point. So they, in fact, persist in hopes of getting more dope, excuse me, to feed their addiction and alleviate withdrawal symptoms, as the heroin that they didn't even know a month ago now becomes not a want, but a need. So it brings me to another important theme in Requiem for a Dream, is that the characters self-deception, in the way that they conceal the true extent of their addiction, both from themselves and from others, is what we would refer to as denial. And denial serves a crucial psychological defense, enabling addicted individuals to continue using drugs despite the clear negative consequences that that show up in their life. Um, Sarah, Harry's mom, refuses to recognize the damaging effects of her pill use, becoming consumed by her dream of appearing on television and justifying her drug use as a mean to achieve her goals. Similarly, Harry, Marion, and Tyrone convince themselves that they can control their addiction, or that it's just a temporary phase in their life. Um, the character's denial highlights the destructive power of addiction, as they cling to the belief that their lives will improve once they achieve their dreams. But the last half of the book proves that this is not the case. So summer has passed, and all four characters are now completely entrenched in their addiction. Harry ends up with a septic abscess on his arm from shooting up repeatedly in the same vein. He is admitted to the emergency room where, upon waking up from surgery, he realized that mm, I mean, all of his arm has been amputated in attempts to keep the sepsis from spreading. His mom, Sarah, has seemingly lost her mind, experiencing such intense hallucinations as a result of the amphetamine abuse that she is admitted to a residential mental hospital, where she's not given any validation or recognition that she so desperately craves, not even from her friends, who hardly recognize the woman they once knew when they come and visit her in the facility. Harry's girlfriend Marion begins to have sexual relations with a well-known drug dealer, in order to support her addiction as an exchange of goods. And this makes her feel like a slave to the drugs, and just completely demolishes her sense of self-esteem and her sense of self-worth. And simultaneously, she grieves the relationship that she could have had with her parents. She wonders if she'll see them again. She wonders, what her life would be like if she stayed with her parents. And lastly, Tyrone. Tyrone ends up in a prison from a drug deal gone bad, where he experiences inhumane treatment from the guards, all while undergoing severe withdrawal symptoms. Uh, but the guards don't care because addicts in jail aren't typically held in a very high regard. So Tyrone is left alone to fantasize about his mother when his mother was alive, to comfort him during his times of need. These are very intense, feelings that were just exacerbated by their addiction. The novel's unflinching depiction of addiction reveals that although drugs do offer the user a fleeting sense of relief and control, they ultimately strip away the essential elements that give life meaning: hope, love, self-worth, and connection. At the end of the book, the reader is left feeling just as empty as the characters do. Um, as someone who's lived through my own active addiction, I find it intriguing and unsettling, just how accurate and comprehensive addiction is portrayed through the hardships that the main characters are embody. Um, Psychologist Irvin Yalom states that the opposite of addiction is not abstinence, but connection. All four characters were in search of a connection that was unfulfilled in their lives, turning them towards external sources like substance abuse to try to become whole. Um, However, substance abuse is only an illusory escape, one that does not last, and one that will come back to bite you 100 times harder in the end. And it's important to remember that true healing is found in hope, self-worth, love, and connection.